Hi, boys and girls. It's great to see everyone. Today we're going to start a new chapter book called Dessert First, written by Hallie Durand. Chapter 1 is called Mrs. Howdy Doody. I don't know if Mrs. Howdy Doody is her real name or not, but on the very first day of third grade, our teacher told us to call her that. She also told us on that very first day to march to our very own drummers. And then she said, "Watch and learn." And right there in front of us, even though we didn't know her very well, she put on her white snowball slippers and marched around the classroom. She has big feet, and she took big steps, but she didn't make a sound because she was wearing slippers. "Now it's time to get acquainted," she said when she sat back down. I didn't know what to expect after the marching, but she reached under her desk and brought out a shiny piece of wood. She held it up for the class to see. It had a pair of roller skates and a pair of swim fins painted on it. "This is my coat of arms," she said, "and you can see that it tells you something about me. It tells you that I'm a creature of land and sea, for starters. Now reach into your desks," she said. I was disappointed that the watching part didn't last very long, but I put my hand in my desk and pulled out a shiny piece of wood just like Mrs. Howdy Doody's. I reached in again and pulled out a perfectly new set of paints, with a brand new brush for each color. From what I could tell, Mrs. Howdy Doody and I were going to get along pretty well. "Now, you have your materials," she said, as she held up her coat of arms again. "Now, traditionally," she continued, "a coat of arms is used to indicate your family distinctions, but I want yours to tell me what you are most passionate about." "My dear happy learner," she said, "show me what you love." Now, I'd never been called a happy learner before, and I wasn't sure if I liked it, but I did try to think about what I loved. I saw that Donnie and Billy were already painting action figures. Donnie and Billy are twins, and I've known them for a long time. Now, for sure, action figures are their passion. They always have a few in their pockets. Then Melissa R. asked if she could use some rubber cement, and Emily V. asked for glitter. I didn't understand how they all knew what to do so fast. Even Amy D. had something already. It was either a roller coaster or my sister Charlie's hair. They look the same kind of the way she draws. I couldn't believe I was stuck in the same class as Amy D. again. We've been enemies, since first grade. Ever since she stuffed leaves in my mouth and called me a tree. Still makes me mad to think about that leaf stuffer. And here she was, almost finished with her coat of arms when I hadn't even started. Oh, what did I love? Well, it certainly wasn't Charlie, and it certainly wasn't either of my brothers, Wolfgang or Mushy. They could be cute once in a while, but not all the time. Oh, and it certainly was not mayonnaise. Just thinking about mayonnaise made me feel sick. There was only one thing I knew that I loved all the time, and that was my dog Chunky. He's been with me since I was 1. I wouldn't even need all paints to color him. All I needed was black and white. I drew him to fill up the entire board because he is big. He's part Roddy. I added a few gray hairs around his eyes just to let people know how wise he is. Then I signed my name, Dessert. Now, you might want to know about the cherry. There's a picture of her signature. I call it flair. It could be on top of a banana split, a cornflake cream cheese cookie, a hot fudge sundae, or even a freshly baked lemon square, like the ones Mummy made last night. Also, it shows my personal style. Mrs. Howdy Doody came by and said, "Wow, that looks like a very large dog to me." "Oh, this is Chunky," I said. "I've known him since I was 1. That makes him 49 years old in our system." "Wow, that's almost half a lifetime," Mrs. Howdy Doody said. Then she looked at my signature and said, "What in the wide world is that, Dessert Schneider?" "Oh, it's a cherry," I said. "A cherry?" "Yes, a maraschino cherry. When it comes right down to it, that's really all you need in life, isn't it? Plus something to put on it." And we nodded at each other. I was convinced it was going to be an amazing year. Except for Amy D. Chapter 2, A Family Night. When I walked into our house after school the next day, I saw our big tub of crayons on the counter. This could mean only one thing. It was going to be another family night at Fondue Paris, our restaurant. Oh, I love fondue because it's cooked right at your table and you get to stick your food on the end of a skewer. It's kind of like a mini back scratcher. After you stick your food on, you get to dip it in a big pot of melted cheese. But when we all go there together, something awful always happens. That's because Charlie, remember she's my sister who's 4? Well, she's going through a phase. And Wolfgang and Mushy, well, they're 2 and 1. We call them the Beasties. That should tell you just about everything you need to know about them. 3 hours later, just as I predicted, we were all sitting in our minivan on our way for fondue. As soon as we walked through the revolving door and I saw the Eiffel Tower in the middle of the room, I started wondering what today's flavor would be. You've probably never seen a fondue tower. I hadn't either until Daddy and Mummy installed it in our restaurant 4 years ago. Mummy says it started as a simple way to honor our French heritage. And the idea was to have a small Eiffel Tower in the center of the restaurant. But my dad decided that our tower should be full of dessert fondue. Sometimes he's really smart. One way or another, the tower ended up being 8 feet tall with red, white, and blue twinkling lights. There's a giant silver fondue pot underneath it that's shaped kind of like a witch's cauldron. And each day it's bubbling with a different flavor of sweet, delicious fondue. If you look closely, you can see the fondue go up the tube inside the tower. And once it reaches the top, it comes streaming back down the middle. Oh, it's a beautiful thing to watch. Then comes the fantastic part. You get to fill up your fondue bowl in that stream. Now, the not so fantastic part is that somebody always seems to be watching to make sure you don't make too much of a mess. Guston came rushing over as soon as he saw us, and he kissed me and everybody else on both cheeks. This took forever. Then he said, "Follow me." He led us to our table, number 12, with only a mirror view of the fountain. Daddy always says, there's not a bad seat in the house here because of the mirrors everywhere. But I think he's wrong. I've never been allowed to sit right next to the tower. I'm convinced it would be better than just watching that yummy fondue stream down in the mirror. After we sat down, the first thing I did was open my menu and take a look at the small sheet inside that told me today's special tower flavor. That little sheet told me it was Maisie's Melted Lollipop, which tastes like orange, lemon, and lime sherbet all mixed together. Ooh, it's one of the best we have. A few minutes later, Guston presented each of us with a pink ginger ale. At least that's what Charlie calls a Shirley Temple. "You are now a 3rd grader," Guston said to me, "so you will order first. Tell me what you would like." "Guess," I said. He put a finger to his chin and said, "Of course it will be the coq au vin." "Of course it won't," I said. "Oh, then I'm sure it will be the filet de boeuf," said Guston. "Here's a clue," I said. A, B, C, D, E. Aha! F. F is for fondue flight, Guston said. "Yes," I said. "Your cheese?" he asked. "My cheese better?" Be cheddar, said Guston. "Of course it will be the cheddar." The fondue flight was the only thing we ever ordered, because you get to start with cheese fondue, and you end up with a trip to the tower. The flight is very popular. "How was Mrs. Howdy Doody today?" said Mummy. "Oh, you wouldn't like her," I said. "Why not?" said Mummy. "Her socks." "Well, what about her socks?" "Well, they don't match," I said. "Well, that's okay," said Mummy. "Sounds like she has her own fashion sense." "Well, now then, how come it's okay when mine don't match? Or it's not okay when mine don't match?" "Well, she's your teacher," said Mummy, "and it's nice that she does things her own way. Did Billy and Donnie—" "Billy and Donnie!" Charlie shouted. I'm going to marry Billy and Donnie. Gaston appeared, ready to make our fondue. Is there a wedding? He asked. You'd better speak with Charlie about that one, I said. Voila, he said, as he ignored me. He placed one platter of bread cubes, apples, carrots, potatoes, and pickles between me and Charlie, and then another between my parents. 97 flights last night, Dad said to Gaston. They come for the tower, Gaston replied, as he put a silver fondue pot on top of a skinny metal frame with the sterno under it to keep it warm. He smiled as he lit the can on fire. I think the sterno kind of looks like a can of tuna with blue jello in it. There was a big flame for a second, and then it got smaller. Gaston started cooking. The garlic, he said, as he threw it in and moved it all around the pot. Then he let me, and also Charlie, dump in the cheese. Then he added mustard and white wine. His arm moved like an egg beater, and he stirred fast for a long time. Dessert, he finally said. You will be my critic. Of course, I said. I took my skewer and put a big piece of bread on the end, and I started rolling it around in the fondue. When there was lots of cheese wrapped around my bread, I took it out, blew on it 3 times, and put the whole thing in my mouth. Oh, it's heavenly, I said, when I had finally swallowed it. Merci, he said. Then Gaston disappeared for a moment and came back with a heaping platter of French fries for Charlie, the beasties, and for me. We like to dip the fries in the fondue. My parents think it's gross. I took turns dipping pickles, then fries, then pickles, then fries. I didn't look up till I was done. So what else should we know about Mrs. Howdy Doody? Said Mummy. Nothing. Can I go to the tower now for dessert? May you go to the tower, said Mummy. Okay, may I go to the tower, I said. You may, said Mummy, and you may take Charlie with you. I go too, said Wolfie, climbing down from his chair. No, you'll stay right here, said Mummy, putting him back in his seat. Gaston must have heard us, because there he was taking our plates away. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time. A moment later, he came back with a platter of strawberry hats, pretzel animals, and cookie braids. I led Charlie over to the tower, and since nobody seemed to be watching, I filled my bowl with the yummy melted orange, green, yellow fondue till it nearly overflowed. Then I kept guard for Charlie while she did the same thing. I was hoping Mummy didn't notice. She does not like excess when we take too much of something. On our way back to table number 12, I saw in the mirrors that we wouldn't be staying much longer because Wolfie was standing on his chair with his skewer in his hand. So as you can see, the little ones are getting restless. And those of you with younger brothers and sisters or cousins, you know how that goes when they start to get restless. I watched Daddy trying to snatch the skewer away and Mummy blocking Mushy's head. Then the chair toppled over and Wolfie disappeared from view. By the time we got back, Daddy was dragging him out from under the table and he said to the rest of us, "We'll be in the van." And right then, Mushy started swiping the table like a windshield wiper, clearing everything off. Mummy grabbed him and handed him to Daddy also. Take him too, she said. Once it was quiet again, Charlie and Mummy and I took turns dipping. I dunked my cookie braid straight down and twirled it so it looked like a rainbow totem pole. I put it in my mouth and let the whole thing turn into sugary soup. Next, I skewered a strawberry hat and filled it with fondue. Then I dunked a pretzel animal, and it was salty and sweet at the same time. We can't forget about Dad, said Mummy. 3 more dips. I squeezed in another pretzel animal, 2 more totem poles, and I felt good and comfortable, even though I knew what was waiting for us in the van. That is the end of chapter 2. I don't know about you boys or girls, but I'm kind of curious what Dessert's real name is. Pretty sure it's not Dessert. Same with Mrs. Howdy Doody. I'm not sure if that's her real name either. Stay tuned for tomorrow when we read chapter 3, called Courage and Determination. Have a fantastic day, Parkway Manor, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.